Hey, good afternoon. All right, so I just got off the call with the members of the Empower Bookkeeper Network, and so Tabitha, who's in Empower Bookkeeper Network and Bookkeeper Training School, asked, "Okay, how many students are in Bookkeeper Training School?" Because she sees all the questions in the group, and she's like, "This just looks like really overwhelming. There's so many questions." And there's I think there are like 30 to 50 new posts a day in the group. It's a lot, and some days there are more than others, but there's a lot of posts. And it's like, reacting to other people's reactions and stuff like that. Like, I routinely log into Facebook, and like my notifications are maxed out. Okay. And she was like, "Okay, so you, like, honestly, like, how much sleep do you get?" And I'm like, I'm going to do a live on this. Like, I'm going to explain, like, how I get everything done. Because I have two businesses. It's tax season. Empower Bookkeeper Network has over 650 people in it now. And I know, like, a lot of you are like, I don't know how I'm going to even fit a business into what I do. So let me talk a little bit about what my schedule looks like. We actually have 3 podcast episodes coming out where my husband and I we did them together, and we talked about life, business, and parenting together. So hopefully you guys find it interesting.
He's so smart.
He's right behind me. And so, yes. And he's so smart. But I kind of wanted to take some time and kind of talk about, like, how do I get all this done? What does a typical day look like? And just, kind of give you guys, like, a behind the scenes, because I know a lot of you are like, I don't even know how I would do this. So first off, I'm going to start with, like, I'm really blessed that, Jeff and I get to work together. So that totally helps. Because I have help with that. But remember, I'm running 2 businesses, and I'm teaching at the university, which that'll be over in May, thank goodness. So that's kind of, put that into perspective. So, the way that it works in our house is that, it's funny, Jeff and I, like, we split things, right? And so, so everything that we do, all of our responsibilities are basically split up between the 2 of us. And I know some of you are like, I can't do that. My spouse isn't supportive, or my spouse works outside the house, or whatever. And I mean, ultimately, even if your spouse works outside the house, your spouse is also responsible for part of the house. They are also responsible for part of the parenting. And so, I think often as moms, we take on a lot. Okay. And we kind of think that, like, everything, has to fall on our shoulders. Especially those of you that are stay-at-home moms, that you think, well, I'm the one staying home, so I have to do all the things. And being like, those of you that are single moms, I don't know how you do it, honest to God. Because, Jeff was gone for a couple days, and I don't even know how you guys do it. But even in the times where Jeff worked full time, and, I was home because I was sick, or I was just starting my business, and so things were building slowly, we always balanced out the house stuff. We've always, parented Eric together. And so that's one thing I think that really helps our situation, is to have an honest talk about, what all we're both doing. So the way my day typically works is I have a couple hours to work in the morning, and I have a couple hours that I work in the afternoon. And that's if Eric naps. If Eric doesn't nap, then that kind of all goes out the window. And sometimes we put Eric in front of the TV. Okay. We do. Because sometimes you have deadlines, you have things you have to get done. Okay. It does not make you a bad parent. Okay. It doesn't. Okay. Say that with me. It doesn't make me a bad parent if I put my kids in front of the TV for a little bit. Okay. Sometimes we put Eric on the floor in here with some cars and trucks and some Legos and things like that. that works too if that's what you want to do. But it doesn't make you a bad parent if every once in a while you let your kid watch a little bit of TV. Okay? If you don't like that, I'm sorry. But that's how this happens. Okay? It just is. It's reality. Okay? And it's funny because a really good friend of mine, she told me that this week. She's like, you know what? Sometimes you got to get work done, right? And a little bit of TV is going to be okay. So I have a couple hours in the morning and I have a couple hours in the afternoon, which those of you that have smaller kids, right, that's probably what ideally, you'd like your schedule to look like. But it doesn't have to look like that either. So the first thing that you have to do if you want to make this work is you have to figure out how much time you actually have. Not how much time you want to have, not how much time you'd love to have, but how much time you actually have. Okay? And so I think a lot of times, I see people are like, well, I'm going to finish bookkeeper training school in 30 days, right? Which means you would have to work on it 2 hours a day, every single day to get the whole thing done because it's about 60 hours of content. Okay? And I'm like, okay, great. So where are your 2 hours in the day? And like, well, I've got 5 minutes here and I've got 5 minutes there and I've got, I might be able to, do some while I'm in the bathtub. And if every time I go to the bathroom during the day, I'll, open up my phone and I'll do some. And you know what I mean? It's like, you're not identifying like specific time where you're going to do it. And that's really key for me is like, I have on my calendar, okay, this is the time that I'm going to work. Okay. And this is the time I always know I have the morning. Okay. But I don't always have the afternoon. And so when I'm planning out what I'm going to get done that day, I always make sure that in that certain block that I have. And so for some of you, the certain block might be after your kids go to bed. It might be for like early in the morning. It might be, it might be an hour during lunchtime. It might be nap time. It might be, I'm going to put my kid in front of the TV for an hour. Whatever that time for you is, okay? If you have certain time, then make sure that that time is the stuff that you must get done. So, for example, like if you have clients, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my clients done during that certain time. Okay, and make sure that their stuff gets done for the month, the absolute first thing. Okay, then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do marketing, right, and try to get more clients. Okay, and so, your priorities should always be doing client work that you have, okay, and getting it done as efficiently as you can so that you can market and get more clients. Okay, because the thing is, the more clients you make, the more money you can make, the more things you can outsource, the more breathing room you have. One of the beautiful things about bookkeeping is that you're making a higher hourly rate than the average person. Okay, and so if you like what you're doing, right, which hopefully you do, then say, okay, if I get a client, right, if I get one client, then that one client means that I can bring in a cleaning person this month. Well, that sounds nice. And in the time that I save for that cleaning person to come in, I could probably get 5 or 6 more clients. Which means for what I'm paying the cleaning person, I can 5 or 6x that money if I can get 5 or 6 more clients. And that is how you make time. Okay? That's how you create more time in your life. So when you say, okay, now I've got these 5 or 6 more clients. Now I'm going to, I'm keeping some of that money for us, but then I want to invest a little bit more of that money into maybe hiring somebody to do the lawn, or maybe, getting some freezer meal recipes, or getting some crock pot recipes. And oh, those are saving me so much time. I can't even tell you. I cannot even tell you. Okay. How much time those are saving me. Or maybe I get a meal prep service, like a HelloFresh or something, a couple nights a week, just to free up some time, right? And as you are building up your business, you're going to take part of that money and you're going to keep it for you. And then you're going to take part of that money and you're going to invest it in you and your business. And that doesn't always look like buying a new computer or buying new equipment or buying a nicer chair. Sometimes that means you're going to buy yourself some more time. Okay? And so it might be, hey, you know what, as Eric gets a little bit older and he's not napping in the afternoon, maybe I bring someone in to watch him for a couple hours and play with him for a couple hours. Or maybe we do, I bring in somebody that can do a special activity with him, or, bring him to a class. And while he's taking the class, I can get some work done. Okay. And so I'm going to pay for that to create a little bit more time for me so that I can make some more money. Okay. So you see how that works? And also what that looks like too sometimes is, okay, I'm going to hire somebody to do my social media so it keeps going. I'm going to hire somebody who handles my email and my admin for me so that I can work. And that's really, I've gotten to the point now where there are a few functions in my business that I do, and the rest of it is outsourced. So I do, client interaction. I do, final review of all the client stuff. I do all of the lives and the trainings and things like that for Bookkeeper Training School. And most everything else is outsourced. Because those activities, those are the essential activities that it takes to make money in our businesses. And then I've gotten to the point, and it took me a long time to get here. This is not like an overnight thing. But what I did is every time we made a little bit of money, right, part of that went for us. And then part of that went to something that I knew would free up some of my time so that I could go out and make more money. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Let me know. So when I'm, so like Tabitha asked, like, how do you handle all of the comments in Facebook? Okay. And soon we're moving over to something new. I'm so excited about this. Hopefully that's going to happen this week. What I do is I set a timer. Okay, and I go to my computer. Okay, I try to do a lot of these from my computer. And if you click on your notifications on your computer, okay, in Facebook, first of all, I set a timer. And then what I do is I open up the notifications window. And if you click on the three dots in the notifications window, it says open notifications. And this is really cool if you've never done this, if you get a lot of notifications. What I do is, if you click on a notification, it will open, it'll open in the middle of the screen, but that sidebar for the notification stays open. It's pretty cool. I also do this when I go through friend requests as well. I open up this window. But what it'll do is it will keep the notification pane open. So I'll scroll all the way down to the last red notification, and I just start at the bottom and I work my way up. And I get as many done as I can before my timer goes off, and then I say, okay, I'm all done. And I go off and do something else. I do the same thing with email. I do the same thing with, with Slack. And that's what I do. And then it's like, okay, timer's off, done. And if I do that, if I do, 15 minutes a couple times a day, that gets me through all of it. Okay, that gets me through all my notifications and all my questions. The other thing I do is I have, and I've showed you guys these before, I think. I have these sticky notes on my computer. This is my startup routine. Okay, sorry, there's a little bit of dust on that one. Okay, that's my startup routine. So I turn on my computer, I go fill my diffuser, I breathe for a minute. I do my devotional, I fill in my planner, I do Bonjoro videos, I go through my email real quick to see if there's anything that I need to respond to, and then I go through my Voxers for the same thing. Okay, Voxer's like a walkie-talkie program if you've never used it before. And then I have one for shutdown also. Okay? And I block off the time for this in my working time. So here, and it doesn't matter what time I get to my computer, because that you don't always get there at the same time every day. But the first thing I do is my startup. Okay? And then the last thing I do is my shutdown. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I can't do my shutdown at you know, today I'm definitely not doing it at 2:30 because it's already 3 o'clock. But what I'll do is, you know, I'll come in here for like 15 minutes when Eric is settling down before he's gone to sleep. And I'll do one quick sweep through my email. I'll look at my planner to see if is there anything I didn't finish. And I'll just kind of like prep myself a little bit for the next day. I close down all my browsers. I clean off my desk a little bit, which right now is a disaster. But, you know, I'll spend some time cleaning it up today. But that's it. That's it. Sleep is incredibly important to me, so I always make sure I get all the sleep. Okay. And I mean, I think the hardest thing, I'm going to be honest with you guys, the hardest thing when you start a business is that you know all the things you should be doing, but you don't have the time to do. So you have to ask yourself, what are the most essential things that must get done to keep your business moving forward? And those two things are always going to be client work and marketing. Okay, and in marketing, I consider sales in that too. And the problem is what most small business owners do is they're futzing with their website. They're futzing with setting up their email. They're learning, they're reading. And I get that there's a place for that. Okay? But at some point, you need to implement. Okay? If you do not have any clients, your number one top priority is marketing. All the time. Every day. That is the first thing that you should be doing. Okay? Is getting yourself out there, looking for leads, connecting with those leads. That has to be it. And if that is not the first thing that you were doing every single day, you need to make it the first thing you do every day. Because if that is all you get done, you've had a good day, right? You've done the most essential thing in your business. And that's it. Because you know what? The admin stuff is always going to be there. Doing your own books is always going to be there. But marketing and client work, that's what's going to keep your business alive. That's what's going to keep your business thriving and growing. So I hope you found this helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. And I'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Have an awesome weekend. Bye.